Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents What Happened on Hicks Road by Hannah Jayne. Narrated by Renée Chambliss. 1. Take this next left. No, Lennox, don't. That's Hicks Road. It's totally haunted. A road can't be haunted. And besides, it's awesome. Left, right here. Allison Marin grabbed the steering wheel and gave it a sharp turn, the car lurching, tires squealing as the road went from smooth paving to gravel. "Allison," Lennox Oliver said, as she shoved the brunette half playfully. "Don't touch the wheel." The two passengers dissolved into giggles, and once her prickles of fear subsided, Lennox did too. It was nice to relax. She was new in town and had spent her first 3 weeks at Pioneer High trying her best to go unnoticed. It was halfway through the year. Everyone had their friend groups already, and Lennox had no interest in being new kid bully fodder. She was shy and thin, with a head full of unruly brown curls, thick glasses, and 5 different schools in her wake. While the scenery was great as she crisscrossed the country with her traveling ER nurse dad, the new schools and new kids were not. "This is it?" Lennox peered out the window, waiting for her eyes to adjust to the tree-darkened street. She glanced at the clock, 9:47. She hoped that a street light or a swath of moonlight would cut through the trees and give her a better view of this supposedly haunted road. The headlights on her old Honda seemed weak, illuminating the yellow lines directly in front of the car and nothing else. "Just looks like a normal road to me," Lennox said. "Trees, double yellow lines, very road-like." "It's not the road exactly," said Allison, shifting in her seat. She pointed. "It's mainly the woods and everything surrounding it." Lennox squinted. The foliage wasn't particularly dark or menacing. Big gnarled oaks interspersed with pine trees, the occasional cartoon green splash of fern. "They say there is a cult of witches who practice around here," Eva Lorna said, her voice ominous from the back seat. "So dumb," Allison groaned. "And I heard it was druids." "Like priests?" Lennox asked. "Not even," Eva said with a definitive nod. "It's a sad story, actually." "Sad why?" Eva blew out a sigh. "Like 1,000,000 years ago, or sometime in the 80s or something, there was this giant earthquake out here, and this family got trapped up on the top of Hicks. It was a mom and a dad and 2 little kids, a girl and a boy. Legend has it that they waited for days for help, maybe even weeks, so long that the family started eating each other." "What?" Lennox gulped. "They ate the little girl first, and then I think the mom. The dad went crazy because, eating his family. But the little boy..." Lennox could feel the thrum of her nerves. "What happened to the little boy?" "They say he developed a taste for human flesh. The police found him as he was finishing off his own dad. It had been months at that time. What they could see of his face was caked with blood. One of the cops swore the kid had grown fangs like an animal. The cops tried to capture him, but he took off like a shot, on all 4s. Lennox snorted. "That's completely ridiculous. People don't just turn into animals." She looked at her friends, who stared back at her wide-eyed. "Come on, you don't really believe..." Lennox felt herself tense up on the steering wheel, her eyes darting at the trees lining the road. With every inch of asphalt her car tires ate up, the trees seemed to lean in, choking out the sky, the pale flits of moonlight. Lennox had been eating lunch alone those first few weeks, zipping through a grisly horror novel on her phone, when Allison sat next to her and gave her a wide grin. "You're new," she had said that day, half statement, half accusation. Lennox remembered the tightness in her chest, the wariness prickling behind her eyes. Another school, another mean girl. Uh-huh, Lennox said with practiced calm. Where from? Detroit. She thumbed a page. Cleveland, end of last year. Lennox dropped her phone in her lap. She didn't want to seem eager or even the least bit excited. But a new kid finding another new kid in a sea of high schoolers who seemed to have known one another since birth was too good to pass up. Allison. The girl put out her hand, and Lennox shook it awkwardly. Lennox, it's been about a month for me. Well, a month in town, but only 3 weeks in school. I was doing independent study. Allison nodded. But then the pull of public school and all it has to offer was just too strong, huh? She grinned. You guys! Another girl, this one with a white blonde pageboy haircut and eyes cartoon blue, came bounding over to them. You are never going to believe what I just heard. Lennox snapped back to the present, to the ink-black road in front of her. If this road is indeed haunted, why am I driving on it? Lennox asked. Because it's just a stupid legend. It's not. Eva pushed herself halfway into the front seat. It's so not. My mom went to high school with this girl who was killed on this very road, and when they found her body, someone had eaten her heart. Allison snorted and pushed Eva on the forehead. Dude, you stink of vodka and Gatorade, and that never actually happened. It was a guy who got killed. They cut off his arms and legs. He was like the janitor's uncle or something. And then the janitor's hair turned white. Eva fell back into her seat and exploded into giggles. Those things have nothing to do with each other. Allison rolled her eyes, and Lennox shook her head. Besides, we can't be scared of what we can't see, Allison said with a sinister grin. Let's turn these headlights off. She leaned into Lennox, her hands across the wheel. Turn 'em off. More laughter, Eva pounding on the back of her seat. Turn them off, turn them off. Don't touch. Lennox's eyes shot back to the road. A figure darted out from her left. Allison went for the wheel. Lennox stamped on the brake. Those eyes, wide, ice blue. A swath of blonde hair illuminated in Lennox's headlights. Then, blackness. Thump! The car lurched. Tires squealed and spit up gravel. What the hell was that? You guys? We hit something. No, we didn't. It was Allison, shaking her head. No, we didn't. Lennox's heart slammed against her ribcage. Her foot was still on the brake. The lever pushed all the way to the floor of the car. Her hands welded to the wheel. Turn the lights back on. Eva's voice was a whisper, 100 miles behind Lennox. Lennox's eyes were wide, focused on the blackness, on the sea of nothingness in front of them. But she saw her again and again in her mind's eye. The girl, awash in her car's headlights for a split second, wearing a bright teal t-shirt, her arms thrown up to protect herself, her eyes wide, her long blonde hair fanning out. Darkness. Thump. 2. Turn on the lights. This time, Lennox's body complied. She pushed the car into park, turned on the headlights, and went for the car door. Eva grabbed Lennox's shoulder. What are you doing? I saw a person. I saw a girl. Lennox's lips felt numb. We have to see. We have to help. No. Allison shook her head again. I didn't see anything. She had blonde hair. Lennox brushed a hand along her own dark hair. Blue eyes. I didn't see a girl, Allison protested. I heard. Eva started, then stopped. Tears pricked at Lennox's eyes. Her limbs went limp and heavy. It was a girl, not a witch or a druid or whatever. And I think A sob lodged in her chest. I definitely didn't see a girl. If you hit anything, it was probably a raccoon or even a deer. Allison sounded unconcerned. I saw her eyes. Lennox pushed open the car door, her body moving in molasses slow motion, her mind thundering. Call the police. Call your dad. Stay where you are. Run like hell. Those eyes, terrified, wide, and then Lennox shuddered, a rush of cold air making goosebumps raise on her arms. Eva and Allison looked like disembodied heads in the car's dome light. Lennox pushed her feet forward, her sneakers shuffling over gravel, fallen leaves. She scanned the side of the road, her eyes flitting from broken foliage to a slew of tiny rocks on the asphalt. She moved carefully and rounded the front of the car. The tremor in her outstretched hands illuminated in the waning reflection of her headlights. There was a slight dent in the grille of Lennox's car, puckering the light blue hood of the little Honda, and her fingers slid over it, expecting what, she didn't know. But all she felt was the hot metal, the pinch of chipped paint.
Do you see anything?
Eva's voice floated on the darkness, and Lennox forced herself to continue to move, to push the dead weight of her tongue in her mouth. "Hello?" Lennox called out. "Are you okay? I'm sorry." She was answered by the soundless night, by the tick, tick, tick of the engine cooling down, by her own breath ripping through her throat. "I didn't see. I'm so sorry." She circled the whole front of the car, tears rimming her eyes and rolling down her cheeks. "I didn't mean..." Her voice was a raw whisper. "Hello?" There was no body on the pavement. No sounds of someone groaning or footsteps jogging away. "Hello?" She glanced back through the windshield, where Eva and Allison were huddled together. Allison kicked open the car door and leaned out. "If you hit anything at all, it was probably an animal, maybe even a deer." Lennox nodded. She wanted to believe her friend. She wanted to crawl back in the car and rewind 20 minutes and laugh about druids and witches and cannibals. She wanted to wipe the thump from her mind, to scrub clean the memories of those eyes, those lips, parted in a scream. She could still see the eyes, the lips, the hands splayed. Lennox circled the car with new fervor, screaming now. "Hello, please, are you hurt? We can help you." A light rain had started to fall, and Lennox was jogging farther up the road, her eyes trying to adjust to the darkness as her headlights faded behind her. "Hello?"
"Lennox, come back."
Eva stepped out of the car, and Lennox ran toward her, blinking in the bright light from her own phone. "Here," she said, handing it to Lennox. Eva clicked her phone flashlight on, and the two girls poked around the car, looking around the road. Allison stepped out behind them, arms crossed in front of her chest. "There's nothing here," Allison said. "Didn't you see her?" Lennox snapped. Eva and Allison exchanged a look, then studied Lennox. And suddenly she felt exposed, raw.
"Lennox,"
Eva said slowly.
"I really didn't see anyone. Are you absolutely sure you did?"
Lennox gritted her teeth, her saliva going sour in her mouth. "I know what I saw," she thought. And then, just as quickly, a voice from the back of her mind. "Do you?" Suddenly, Lennox was 9 years old, bathed in the light of that old ranch house kitchen, and her mother was across from her, arms waving, lips going as she talked animatedly to someone who wasn't there. A twinge of fear roiled through Lennox, a tiny lump forming in her chest, and she felt the mist of fresh tears at the back of her eyes. She shook her head slowly. I don't know,"
Eva patted Lennox's shoulder, and Allison threw her arms around her.
I'm so sorry. That was weird and scary, but we're all good, right?
Eva nodded silently. But Lennox was staring into the fringed darkness, the blackness at the edge of the road. She could have fallen down there. She could be injured. I saw something, Lennox whispered to herself. She looked back at the car again, at the dent in the hood, and her knees went to putty. She dropped onto the street, feeling the rain soak into her jeans. Palms down, she crouched, craned her neck, looked under the car. Her stomach clenched and bile itched at the back of her throat. Was that blood? Something dark, just a spot, farther than an arm's length away.
It was a deer.
Allison was standing on the mountainside of the road where Lennox saw the girl run out.
You must have clipped it. It happens all the time.
Lennox stood up, blood rushing to her head, making her vision wonky. She pressed her fingertips to her temples, steadying herself. What makes you say that? Allison stepped aside, used her phone to illuminate the trumped-down foliage coming from the dark woods.
This is an animal path. See how it's all smashed over here? A deer was probably running through when you clipped it.
But
that's why the dent is tiny. If you really hit something, the dent would be, like, huge, you know?
Eva stepped forward.
And this deer is...
Allison strode in front of the car, pointing to the semi-sheer drop on the other side.
Probably kept running right on down there.
She shone her phone over the cliffside, the light illuminating 2 feet of broken baby pines before dissolving against the thick, shaggy trunks of redwoods and fern.
I'm sorry,
Allison said, grabbing Lennox and pulling her into a hug. Eva threw her arms around them and started to giggle, and then Allison was laughing too.
Or maybe it was one of the witches we hit.
That set off another round of giggles in Eva, and Lennox tried to believe it. But if the girl was real and she really had hit her, there would be a body. If she had hit a body, there would be blood. There would be something, right? 3. Lennox's dad was at work when she got home, and she was glad. She was certain the world could hear the beating of her heart as she walked through the dark house, her hand resting on the light switches but not turning them on. Normally, Lennox hated the darkness, but tonight she feared the light. She kept seeing those yellow streaks of headlights, the girl, her eyes, her face illuminated.
I didn't see anything. Nothing happened. There was no one there. We checked.
Lennox kept repeating herself in her head, her words thundering through the vast emptiness, but constantly swallowed by doubt.
You did. You saw her. You hit her. You're guilty.
Lennox tried to sleep, but each time she closed her eyes, her mind opened up, spitting images and questions, and just general chatter that made her eyes fly open and her heart thud. She looked around the room and tried to remember where she was, what state, which house. But they all blended together on nights like this when the din in her head was strong. Every rental house and every rental town looked exactly alike in the darkness. 4 walls, corner after corner, boxing her in. Finally, she clicked on the light and wriggled her fingers between her mattress and box spring, pulling out her sketchbook and the charcoal pencil pressed inside. The sketchbook wasn't beautiful or professional. It was from a Walgreens somewhere, and it was smashed and wrinkled from living pressed inside Lennox's bed and stained with Coke Zero and iced tea. But it was the closest thing to a memory Lennox had. She sketched page after page in every state. The cherry blossoms in D.C., the skewed view of rusted fire escapes from her bedroom window in Detroit, the girl in Bethesda who spent her entire lunch hour just staring at Lennox, Toward the back, were the ones Lennox kept folded over and tried her best not to look at, not to remember. The one of her mom's hands, fingers interlaced, railroad tracks of shaded veins and scars. Her wedding ring slid up to the knuckle of her bony finger. Another of her mom in profile, the pencil lead traced and erased a half-dozen times as Lennox tried to remember when her mother had full rosy cheeks, not the sunken slats that made her eyes look tiny and dark. There was one of her mother and father in shadow, drawn from a photograph clipped to her notebook. Their foreheads were touching as they looked down on a fat, half-naked baby Lennox, swaddled in a hospital blanket and screaming at the world. Lennox flipped past these, the lump in her throat growing. She touched her pencil to the paper, and her body took over, arcs and lines populating the white paper, the sadness and anxiety melting from her body. Drawing had always been her respite, her constant, and it was that way now as her hand moved, the sound of the lead soothing, the scent of the nib intoxicating. She sketched until she felt weak, exhausted. And when she finally dropped the pencil, her eyes closed too, the notebook sliding from her lap and onto the floor. The trees along Hicks Road yawning in dark charcoal arcs, their branches like claws reaching out for the girl huddled in the middle of the street. The girl with wide-open, terrified eyes. Lennox pushed around her milk-soaked Cocoa Puffs as she flipped through news article after news article on her iPad.
Morning. Working on something for school, hun?
Lennox's dad strolled into the kitchen, hair disheveled, robe hanging open, revealing his "What's a Matta You" t-shirt and ancient plaid pajama pants. He worked 10-hour shifts in understaffed emergency rooms and had a wardrobe that consisted solely of pristine scrubs and dingy t-shirts he'd had for decades. She glanced up, anxiety, and the 2 bites of Cocoa Puffs she had eaten, souring her stomach.
Should I tell him?
He was already swirling creamer in his coffee cup, taking a big, slurping sip and smiling when the caffeine hit his system.
No, maybe. Hey, you worked last night, yeah?
Her dad nodded slowly.
Did a girl come into the ER?
He raised an eyebrow over the rim of his coffee mug.
Any particular girl?
A teenager, probably my age. She would have been blonde, Lennox tried to remember, tried to recall the memory that had haunted her the whole night long. But her mind worked to block it out, worked to blur the image, to remind her of what the other girls said. A raccoon, a deer.
Is this blonde teenager a friend of yours?
Her dad was giving her one of his patented dad smiles, the one that gave off a "you can tell me anything, but you're not off the hook" vibe.
Not exactly. I just heard she was in a car accident last night. Maybe. So, this not exactly friend of yours was in a car accident, maybe. Was she at the party where you were? Was she perhaps drinking and then... Because you know you can call any day, any time. No questions asked.
Lennox rolled her eyes.
Dad, this isn't a father-daughter moment. Because if you and your friends are drinking, you can tell... I know. I can call you at any time and you won't get mad, blah, blah, blah.
He smiled, bobbed his head, and took another sip of coffee.
At least that set in. So, tell me about this girl. Are you worried that she was really badly hurt?
Lennox blew out a sigh, ran her fingernail down a groove in the dining table they had bought in Chattanooga, carried to D.C., and shipped on the way out of Detroit. It was railroaded with lines and minuscule cracks, but looked great from afar. Kind of like Lennox herself.
Yeah. It was actually a pretty light night. I don't remember seeing any teen girls, but a 4-year-old swallowed 6 Christmas lights, and there was a little girl with quite a head gash.
Fire shot down Lennox's spine. She thought of the small dent in the grill, the chip of paint standing upright. How little?
5, 6.
Lennox let out the breath she didn't know she was holding. That wouldn't be her.
I guess that's good, then.
Her dad grinned and ruffled her hair like she was 8 years old.
No one in the ER means whatever happened wasn't that bad. But, we're not the only hospital in town.
Lennox wanted to revel in his effortless grin, but her mind was ticking. It wasn't that bad, or the person she hit was dead. The image haunted her again. Eva's laughter, Allison's hands on the wheel. Those eyes, wide, terrified, the flash of blonde. Then darkness. Then thud. Or, Lennox tried to reassure herself, it was nothing. It was... Lennox's heart did a double thump, and she sucked in a breath. I am not my mother, she whispered under her breath. Lennox's father reached out, covered her hand with his, and squeezed.
No, you're not. But where did that come from?
She could feel heat bloom in her cheeks, burning its way to her scalp. I'm not seeing things.
I just meant... It's okay to talk about her. In fact, Dr. Hartzong thinks it's a good idea.
Lennox nodded quickly.
Yeah, but I'm going to be late for school,
she said, avoiding his gaze.
Too late for a hug?
She leaned over and hugged her dad, his familiar scent blanketing her with an immediate calm. They were a team, and he was her rock. 2 traveling buddies against the world. It had always seemed to Lennox that when they were together, nothing from the outside world could touch them. Love you, Dad. Lennox loaded her backpack, silenced her phone when she saw Allison calling. She paused in the driveway, staring at the used Honda Civic that had been her pride and joy when she drove it off the lot a month ago. Her consolation prize for yet another move, yet another school, yet another rental with half-white walls and someone else's welcome mat. Now, the car sat like some ominous omen, some sinister reminder of the night before. In the daylight, the dent looked bigger, angrier, with jags that she hadn't seen in last night's darkness. She rubbed her hand over them again, half expecting memories or insights to come roaring back. But it was nothing but dented metal cutting against the soft flesh of her palm.
You clipped something and it ran off. Why would a person be running along that road in the middle of the night anyway?
Lennox blew out a sigh. She was being ridiculous.
But I saw her.
Again, Lennox straightened.
I didn't see anything, she reminded herself. There was no one there.
She kicked the tire of her car, her stomach dropping when a pebble and a smatter of brick-red dirt popped out of the tire's tread. Dirt, she said, before her mind had a chance to process, to scream, to make her drive back up that horrible winding road and see if she'd left someone to die. It's just dirt.
Len?
She whirled, heart thundering against her ribcage. Her dad smiled from his spot on the porch.
You're jumpy.
Lennox's fingers found the dent, and she pressed her backside against it.
Just surprised me is all. What's up?
Jacket. He held it out, and Lennox stared at it, unmoving.
Oh. Come get it. You made me promise at our last place that I would never be seen outside in my leisure wear.
He gestured to his battered pajamas, and Lennox rolled her eyes, setting her backpack over the dent. She sprinted to her dad, snatched up the jacket, and smiled.
That was 2 places ago, and thank you for adhering to my regulations.
She busied herself getting into the car, taking her time, hoping he would get bored and go back inside. Instead, he sipped his coffee and blinked in the sunlight.
Inside, Dad.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?